Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone. Here I will review a journal. The title is The Use of Podcasts in Improving Student Speaking Skills, which the author are Iskandar Abdul Samad, Ahmad Bustari, and Diana Ahmad. And what will I bring in this presentation? Well, and the first, there is an introduction. Secondly, there is a body which contain research and discussion methods. And the last one, of course, there is a conclusion. Okay, let's go into the first discussion of the introduction. Speaking is widely known as the ability to share thoughts, ideas, and intonation with others by using language in spoken form. In most non-native countries, for example China, Vietnam, and Indonesian, most students may find it difficult to speak English at a good functional level. What can help students to hyper precise in speaking is by introducing alternative media. Podcast, the term, is a combination of the word spot or that is from the brand name iPod and broadcast. Podcasts are audio or video files uploaded to a website where website user can download them freely over the internet. It can be listened to on any device that supports MP3 or MP4 file, such as computers, smartphones, and MP3 players. Podcasts provide opportunity for teachers to support students. Podcasts are believed to not only accelerate listening skills but also stimulate other language, such as pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, and learning activities. Podcasts can be an alternative and innovative tool that can improve students' understanding and achievement in speaking. The first is podcast as language learning material. In this global era, being able to speak English is essential for people to communicated with the global community. To help non-native speakers to learn to speak this language, there are many kinds of technology invented. New opportunities can be gained by using technology. It offers users to connect with people around the world and give a lot of unique perspective and experience. There are a ton of technologies in fact, and one of those which provides material for language learning is called the podcast. The podcast and uploading audio or video file to the internet has emerged as such in the academic field, and it provides many kinds of material learning. Podcast media affirmatively so good point for student in case it will bring the student closer to the target language, and it affects students' attitude and motivation. And second, speaking skill. It involves souls to express meaning to make intuition occur. This means the speaking is an interactive process of communication that connects idea between speaker and interlocutor with a certain purpose. Speaking is the process of sharing and constructing the sense of using oral or verbal in variety contexts. Speaking, an act of making vocal sounds, help to assure the listener in following message, a confusing manner and thoughtful. And the third, there is aspect of speaking. Commonly thought of the most important aspect of speaking is grammar, fluency, accuracy, vocabulary, and pronunciation. So I will explain about 5 these. First is vocabulary. Vocabulary is a word which has its meaning in every function. A word expresses the content of idea to avoid confusion and communication. And the second is grammar. Grammar is a system of rules governing the conventional arrangement and relationship of words in a sentence. Thirdly is a pronunciation. This is the process of pronouncing a particular word in a proper manner. When pronunciation should be acceptable is a necessary aspect in speaking as well. Pronunciation is an individual sound which involves good articulation, and it has variety of sounds such as aspiration, voicing, voice shifting, intonation, and stress. Pronunciation plays a great role in speaking and give a hint toward what is being said. The interlocutor will misunderstand on catching the meaning whether the speaker pronounced wrong pronunciation. Therefore, pronunciation is how to generate an acceptable and an unambiguous lexical word in the language. Fourth is fluency. It means knowing about how he or she expresses it without using feeling words. Example like and while talking to the other occurs. Next, the use of scale in speaking. Call knows term used by teacher and student on using the computer as part of a language course in teaching and learning process. That is a kind of idea that allows teacher and students select appropriate material and adapt it with various teaching and learning styles, and computer aided language learning. So the teacher could use the podcast as a media at improving students' speaking skills. Furthermore, the use of this media stimulates student interest as well. Indeed, a talk in a podcast provides every component in speaking. They are the background setting of conversation, so the body movement, cultural atmosphere, clearly and communicative competence. In brief, stroke a ton of positive experience by means of using the podcast and learning. And we move on the next material. There is the research method. This research aims at finding out an actual description and prove the hypothesis whether the use of podcast media in teaching could improve student speaking skills, especially in fluency and pronunciation. Hence, collect the data to sets of tests, pre-tests, and post-tests, which were given to experimental group. The researchers conducted 5 meetings to gather sufficient the data. Those meetings were divided into 1 meeting for pre-test, 3 meetings for treatment, and 1 meeting for post-test. In the design, as pre-test was given before applying the treatment and post-test. Following after the treatment, for the 2 tests, the code X1 is for the pre-test and X2 for the post-test, while T is a code for treatment. In addition, the variable of these research were speaking skills and podcasts. The independent variable was the speaking skill, whereas the dependent variable was podcast. For technique data collection, this research has 3 tasks. There one pretest. In the first meeting, the researchers explain all steps in case avoiding misunderstanding process. First, the researchers request all participants to listen to all podcasts talk very carefully with the topic vegetable salt. When they listen to a podcast talk, they will allow to jot down every detailed information that was delivered by the speaker. Then, after they have heard the podcast talk, 5 minutes for free for them to prepare an outline. Then research asks them one by one to recall the podcast talk based on the topic given. Eventually, the research gave marks for their performance, especially their fluency and pronunciation. Number 2, treatment. In the treatment meetings, the research used podcasts as the main media in improving the students' speaking skill. The treatment was administered for 3 meetings. It took 2 minutes, equal 40 minutes for each meeting. In addition, and the treatment process, the researcher used different podcast talk in each meeting. Below is the description of the treatment activities. The last test, post-test. At the end of the meeting, the researchers gave them a post-test. The specific aim of this post-test was to identify their improvement after such treatment section. The talk that was given in this test was just like the researcher once given in the pre-test. The researcher asked students to listen to the podcast talk very carefully with the topic vegetable salad. The researchers allowed them to jot down every detailed information as an outline. After that, 5 minutes were free for them to prepare the material for the speaking. Then the researchers called them one by one to retell the podcast style, which was based on the given topic. And we move on the discussion. As explained in the background of the study, the student found many difficulties in speaking words. They are unable to express ideas, speak fully, use proper structure, like production of appropriate vocabulary, and produce correct pronunciation. However, during several treatments, it turned out the previous problem faced by students were different, especially after they practiced and got better before they made a mistake. But after they have been practicing the reconstruct podcast every week during treatment session, total students saw satisfactory progress and saw the next page. For example, in the initial test, some students produce wrong pronunciation and speak not fluently. When they are ready to practice in session treatment, they can solve this problem calmly and the post-test. Meanwhile, several other students also made the same improvement in more than one aspect, including vocabulary, grammar, and express idea based on the above mentioned explanation. Perfectly applied media podcasts can improve students' speaking skills, in which the results so statistically significant. Finding that result explain that podcast helps students become better achievement in speaking. And the last part in my presentation is the conclusion. It can be concluded that the podcast method shows positive research, whereas this problem just given them an unpaid state score to pass minimum compliance criteria or criteria minimum competence. In the exam conducted by the researchers, obviously after the post-test is held, a student grade increased, implies that their speaking performance has improved. on student speaking achievement. For teacher, this medium is right to aptly in class. It helps teacher to improve student speaking skills and providing teaching material. Podcast is recommended for student need to positively increase their time in practice English because learn English at school is not enough. So one of many ways that they can do in practicing English is download podcasts. In addition, podcasts explore common in speaking, their conversation background, setting, body movement, cultural atmosphere, culinary and communicative competence. For teacher, this media is appropriate to be implemented in the classroom. This helps teacher to improve student speaking skill and to provide correct teaching materials. Nowadays, teachers do not need to worry about how to provide suitable material for teaching. There are many material available on the internet. Thus, the podcast is recommended for teacher in solving problem. For example, findings of appropriate material for student, then teacher only need to download it for good. Okay, so I think that for my presentation and thank you for your attention and thank you for listening and watching this video. See you in the next video. Have a nice day. Bye bye.